I'm just going to say it. Jim Harbaugh is by far the most overrated coach in college football, and only Tom Herman comes close. I don't mean to hate on Jim, and I'm actually rooting for him to succeed, but let's just be honest. When it comes to competing for national championships and winning big games, Jim Harbaugh is an absolute joke. What is going on, guys? Today we are going to be taking a deeper dive into the Jim Harbaugh era at Michigan and why I think he is the most overrated coach in college football. Disclaimer, when I say overrated or that he's a joke, I'm talking about when it comes to competing for conference titles and the college football playoff. Because going 9-3 every year is something that most schools can only dream of. Before we get started, take a moment to subscribe, like this video, drop a comment, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on any more college football content. I have a ton of cool stuff coming this summer, and you won't want to miss any of it. The Michigan Wolverines are one of college football's most prestigious programs, as they have won 42 conference titles and have claimed 16 national championships, which is good for 8th best of all time. As of late though, Michigan football has been nothing but overrated and disappointing. The Wolverines haven't won a Big Ten championship since 2004, and they have had 3 coaches since then. First, they were under Rich Rodriguez for 3 years, and the team went 3-9, then 5-7, and 7-6 before he was ultimately fired in favor of up-and-coming coach Brady Hoke. The Hoke era started out fabulous, as they went 11-2 with wins over Ohio State and Virginia Tech in the Sugar Bowl, but unfortunately, it only regressed from there, as they went 8-5, then 7-6, and finally 5-7 before Hoke was ultimately fired. After that, everyone knew who was going to be the next coach of the Michigan Wolverines. Jim Harbaugh was hired, and the fanbase couldn't have been more excited. But let's first go back in time and try to understand how Harbaugh got to this point and why people were so excited. Jim Harbaugh actually grew up in Ann Arbor, as his father was an assistant coach for the Wolverines, and when it came time to pick a college, Jim chose to play for Michigan. Once he was given the chance to start, he became one of the best quarterbacks in program history, as he led them to a Rose Bowl and finished 3rd in the Heisman Trophy voting. From there, he was drafted in the first round and went on to start for the Bears and Colts before he won the Comeback Player of the Year award and retired after 14 seasons. From there, Harbaugh began his coaching career as a quarterbacks coach for the Oakland Raiders before he returned to the collegiate level and became the head coach of the University of San Diego. While there, he led them to 2 straight conference titles and was so good that he was hired by Stanford to be their new head coach. Cardinal had struggled the previous few years, and Jim was expected to come in and change everything. They were correct, as in his first year, he coached the Cardinal to beat the number 1 USC Trojans in a game they were expected to lose by 41 points. Jim and Andrew Luck led the team to 8-5 and 11-1 records, including a win in the Orange Bowl. After becoming one of the best coaches in college football, Harbaugh was hired by the 49ers. In his first year with the team, he revitalized Alex Smith's career and led them to a 13-13 record before they lost in the NFC Championship game. In his second year, the team was led by Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, and the team went 11-4-1, and he lost to his brother in the Super Bowl to the Ravens. From there, he made one more return to the AFC Championship game before he missed the playoffs entirely, and he was ready for something new. After the firing of Brady Hoke, Jim Harbaugh returned to his alma mater, and the hype for Michigan football was unreal. When Harbaugh came in, he immediately changed everything about the staff and had to try and salvage the 2015 recruiting class. They brought in the number 37 overall class in the country, which only included 6 4-star recruits, a low for Michigan standards. Jim's first big game was his Week 1 road date with Utah, a team that would go on to win 10 games. On that huge stage, the Wolverines fell short, and Harbaugh's record against big teams is now 0-1. The number 12 Wolverines were set to face rival number 7 Michigan State, and everything was going according to plan until it was time to punt the ball with a few seconds left. In one of the most heartbreaking ways I can think to lose a game, their punter bobbled the snap, and Michigan State linebacker Jalen Watts-Jackson picked up the ball and scored a touchdown with no time remaining. This makes Harbaugh 0-2 in big-time matchups. Harbaugh's teams consistently played down to their competition, as they only beat Minnesota after a goal line stand, and it took 2 overtimes and a miracle 4th down game-tying touchdown for them to beat a below-average Indiana team. Both of those games honestly should have gone down as losses, but in the end, they did survive. They did beat Penn State, but the Nittany Lions finished 7-6 that year, and now Harbaugh was set up for his first date with Ohio State. In what has now become a yearly occurrence, Ohio State killed the Wolverines, and Harbaugh's big game record is now 0-3. Jim finally made a statement though, as they ended up going 10-3, and they killed Florida in the Citrus Bowl, and Harbaugh finally gets his first win. Going into 2016, the Wolverines brought in a much better recruiting class, which was headlined by Rashawn Gary and Brandon Peters. Wilton Speight was the team's new quarterback, and it actually looked like Harbaugh was going to take the next step his second year. They ended up destroying Penn State, a team that would go on to go 11-3 and win the Big Ten East, and then they also beat number 8 Wisconsin in a defensive primetime battle. This brings Harbaugh's big game record up to 3-3. But here's where things begin to fall apart. The Wolverines were caught sleepwalking the entire game against Iowa, and it came back to bite them as they lost their first game of the year to Iowa by way of a last-second field goal. They were still playoff contenders though, and all they had to do was beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten championship. In one of the best games of this decade, Michigan lost a controversial double overtime thriller to the Buckeyes, and then went on to lose to number 10 Florida State in the Orange Bowl. Despite starting out 8-0, the Wolverines finished 10-3, and Harbaugh's big game record is now 3-6. Going into 2017, the Wolverines brought in the number 5 recruiting class, and after Wilton Speight battled injury, they were forced to play quarterbacks John O'Korn and Brandon Peters. Harbaugh once again started out the season strong, this time with a win over number 17 Florida. A few weeks later, they lost to a Michigan State team that won 10 games, and then had to take Indiana to overtime to win. After getting killed by number 2 Penn State, Harbaugh's big game record fell to 4-8. After that, Michigan got killed by Wisconsin, lost to Ohio State for the third straight year, and then lost to South Carolina in the Outback Bowl to 4-11 after 3 seasons as the head coach. I do cut him some slack because of the injury to Wilton Speight, but the talent was still obviously there. Going into 2018, the Wolverines brought in the number 22 overall class and landed former number 1 overall quarterback recruit Shea Patterson as he decided to transfer from Ole Miss. Michigan began the season on college football's biggest stage as they played number 12 Notre Dame, and once again they lost. From there, they beat number 15 Wisconsin and number 14 Penn State, and honestly, it actually looked like they could make the playoff. Their redemption tour took them to Columbus, Ohio, as they proceeded to suffer one of the worst losses in school history to Ohio State. Their playoff dreams were over, their Big Ten championship dreams were over, and Harbaugh was now 0-4 against Ohio State. Next, Michigan played number 10 Florida, and they got absolutely smacked by the Gators. Another once promising season was down the drain, more talent was seemingly wasted, and Harbaugh's record is now 6-14 in big games. Going into last season, the Wolverines once again brought in another good recruiting class, and a senior quarterback was calling the plays. This is now Harbaugh's 5th season at the helm, and his seat was starting to get kinda hot. Things didn't start out on a high note, as star running back Chris Evans was suspended for the entire season due to academic concerns. They brought in the best class in the Big Ten, proving that kids still wanted to play for Harbaugh. But when was he ever going to take the next step? People thought 2019 was finally going to be the year, as they were not only picked to finish first in the Big Ten East, but were also supposed to win the Big Ten championship and make it all the way to the college football playoff. They won their first game, but then things became very concerning when it took 2 overtimes to beat Army at home. They won, and then proceeded to get destroyed by Wisconsin once again. They then beat number 14 Iowa, and were sitting at a 5-1 record going into their primetime matchup against Penn State. After falling behind early, receiver Ronnie Bell dropped a game-tying touchdown, and their comeback was not enough, and they would lose. From there, they redeemed themselves with a dominating win over number 8 Notre Dame, but it was once again time for the annual Ohio State beatdown. Things followed the usual script, and then got killed by Ohio State once again. They had a chance to beat a Tua Tagovailoa-less Alabama team, but they got killed in the Citrus Bowl. After this current season, Harbaugh's record in big games is now 8-18, and it's just unbelievable. How on earth can a coach at a school like Michigan lose 18 big games in 5 years and go 0-5 versus their arch rival and expect to have a job? I honestly don't know. At this point, Michigan football has become a complete joke amongst the media and the college football world. Winning 9 to 10 games a year is cool and all, but with consistent top-tier recruiting classes, grade A facilities, and constant exposure, how does a team continually underachieve every single year? It honestly seems like Ryan Day could be a better coach than Urban Meyer, and it looks like the Buckeyes are recruiting even better now. Plus, Penn State is always good, and they're going to continue to get better and better. So realistically, can we ever expect Michigan to win the Big Ten title, let alone beat Ohio State? Let's just look at the Big Ten over the last 5 years to gauge what teams have done more or equal with less talent. For one, Wisconsin consistently wins nearly 10 games every year, and they rarely even get top 25 classes. Northwestern has won 10 games twice over the last 5 years, and they recruit even worse than Wisconsin. Iowa, Minnesota, and even Nebraska have won 9 or 10 games these past few years, and they never recruit to the level of Michigan. I could potentially go on for hours about what teams do more with less, but that's just a waste of our time. After they lost to Ohio State last year, I really thought Harbaugh deserved to be fired. Unless Michigan wants to continue losing big games and hurt their brand image, then I think it's time to replace Jim. Coaches such as PJ Fleck, Chris Kleiman, Luke Fickell, Matt Campbell, and even Jeff Brom would likely do as good or potentially better with the kind of talent Michigan has. But but it's safe to say the university is afraid to move on from Jim because he's an alum and he brings in top-tier classes. Looking ahead to 2020, Michigan will have a quarterback battle between Dylan McCaffrey and Joe Milton for the starting job, and they will have to replace Donovan Peoples-Jones. If you look at their schedule, they have to play Washington, Wisconsin, an improved Purdue, Penn State, Minnesota, a rising Indiana team, and Ohio State. I honestly see them losing at least 3 of those games, and after another potential 9-3 season, would it finally be enough to fire him? I can't really answer that question, but all I know is that in my opinion, there's not a college football coach that disappoints more year in and year out than Michigan's Jim Harbaugh. I know today's video is a bit controversial, but I'm confident in my opinion, and I would love to know yours. If you think Jim is overrated, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, and if you don't think so, I would love to hear your argument too. If you are a Michigan football fan, let me know if you are disappointed in Jim Harbaugh, and if you're an Ohio State or Michigan State fan, please let me know down in the comment section below, and feel free to talk some crap. If you love college football, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to take a moment and hit that like button. I really need your help to hit 2.5k subscribers by the end of June, so please take a moment and do that for me. If you are still here, please check out these other college football videos that I have selected for you guys to watch next. I hope you guys have an awesome day, but until next time, peace.